quarter of a mile, turn right onto Bath Road, A4. Turn right onto Bath Road, A4.
London-raised model stroke actress is 62 today. Grayson Perry is 62 as well. Also Linda Barron. The Lancashire-born actress died, as you know, only a short while ago. Trained with the Royal Academy of Dance and appeared in the film Yentl with Barbara Streisand. That was a really...
Continue on Bath Road for 3/4 of a mile.
...of love for Barbara Streisand, but I remember thinking at the time, this is really not going to be one of her finer moments. But she played Aunt Mabel in the children's series Come Outside with Pippin the Dog, and was a regular on EastEnders. And in 1980, on this very day, March the 24th, The Jam were enjoying their first chart topper, Going Underground. Still got huge coverage, The Jam. Still now, people are very into weather. And what else? Another milestone in the decline of British television in 1998. I can tell you that the Jerry Springer Show has moved to a primetime afternoon slot on ITV. Like any American talk show, it has a host able to cry and laugh an audience of baying hysterics and people desperate to spill their guts on screen. Sound familiar? I thought it might do, actually. I thought it might do, because we got rid of the Jeremy Kyle show. Whether or not we get anything like that back on the television in the future remains to be seen. I have a sneaking feeling probably not. So I think today, enjoy the weather, because it's about, I think we've got a couple more days and then it'll sort of fizzle out. Vivian Walpole says you maybe slurp my tea, talking about feral cats. There are, if you go to Gran Canaria, it's absolutely full of them. You mentioned men behaving badly, Steve. I remember the series on the Comic Relief sketch with Kylie Minogue. Well, they're saying she could help bring back, believe it or not, Neighbours. I think unlikely. Conrad says Kylie was wonderful and joined in, so we should bring back the series. Don't forget, you can download my free Little Bit Extra podcast. I said before, if you go to lbc.co.uk, then you'll be able to download the app, Global Player app, and then you'll be able to download as many of your favourite LBC shows and a range of brilliant podcasts as well. Have yourself a nice day. As I say, enjoy the weather. It's not going to be the most brilliant in a few days' time, so if we make the most of it now, you should be able to get your little tanning in. And way back from Tenerife, says Pat, and we had one of your famous bacon rolls. If I don't get one today, I'm going to be in such a bad mood by tomorrow, but it doesn't matter, because I'm still enjoying the weather as it happens. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. for Steve Allen's Early Breakfast. 10 o'clock this morning, it's James O'Brien, but right now, with your Thursday breakfast, it's Nick Ferrari.
Thanks, Steve. At 7 o'clock on Thursday, March the 24th, in an exclusive interview with Boris Johnson here on LBC.
In 300 yards, at Huntercombe roundabout, take the first exit onto Huntercombe Spur heading to M4, London.
Gold reserves.
So we need to do more economically. Can we do more to stop him using his gold reserves, for instance, in addition to his cash reserves?
The Prime Minister praises the lion-like courage of President Zelensky.
President Zelensky has proved
Exit the roundabout onto Huntercombe Spur.
Leader of his people. He's rallied them, and he's been their voice.
He defends the budget and says they're doing as much as they can, and also he says offside to Russia's last-minute bid to try and host the Euro 2028.
Keep left at the fork.
And of course, all the analysis you need. Much tax gain, of course, from Rishi Sunak, but there's still plenty of pain for pensioners and others. It's all after the 7 o'clock news on LBC.
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
Johnson has told LBC Vladimir Putin has already crossed a red line in his invasion of Ukraine by deliberately targeting civilians. The Prime Minister is meeting fellow NATO and G7 leaders in Brussels later, speaking exclusively to Nick in the past few minutes.
Continue on M4 for 11 miles.
The pressure on the Russian leader.
I think everybody wants to go into this trying to get peace. Nick, we all want to see some solution in Ukraine. Everybody is hoping that Putin will pull back and stop this incredible barbaric slaughter that he's engaged on.
The UK is to arm the Ukrainian armed forces with 6,000 more missiles. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged people around the world to protest in support of his country. Rishi Sunak has defended his spring statement on LBC after being accused of failing to help the poorest people through the cost of living crisis. The Chancellor announced a cut in fuel duty and a higher threshold for paying national insurance in his spring statement, but Labour says there was no immediate measure to tackle rising prices. Mr Sunak says a windfall tax on oil and gas producers would be counterproductive.
We need to get more investment into UK energy, particularly in the North Sea and also in renewables. And last year saw the lowest amount of investment on record pretty much in the North Sea, but there are billions of pounds of projects waiting to go, and I want to see that investment happen. I think that's good for the 200,000 jobs that are in that industry.
The Office for Budget Responsibility has warned that living standards in Britain are set to take the biggest hit since the 1950s. London's mayor is promising to restore trust in the Metropolitan Police after the force has faced a series of scandals. Sadiq Khan has published his new police and crime plan this morning. The measures include more scrutiny of the Met's disciplinary processes and the development of community-led training for officers. The Duke of Cambridge has expressed his profound sorrow at slavery, saying it should never have happened. Prince William has addressed the issue during his visit to Jamaica, following calls for reparations from the royal family. In the city, the FTSE 100 will reopen at 74.60 after closing down 16 points yesterday, and the pound buys $1.31 and €1.20. LBC weather, another warm day with plenty of sunshine for most. Some isolated showers possible for eastern Scotland. Cloudier in the northwest with some light rain at times, a high of 19 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Simon Conway.
The Wi-Fi's down. Wi-Fi down. This is broadband rage. It happens when your internet drops out and the red mist descends. Why suffer like this? Get the UK's first unbreakable Wi-Fi. Only BT's new hybrid home broadband is backed up by EE's mobile network. One day all broadband will be like this.
4G coverage required. 4G connection takes up to 175 seconds. Verify bt.com/verify hybrid.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
Good morning, 4 minutes after 7 on Thursday, March the 24th. In an exclusive interview conducted just moments ago before he departed to Brussels, the Prime Minister speaks to me, outlines many issues and many ideas. He's determined now to ramp up both military and economic pressure. He talks about what problems he might have with other world leaders to whether they're going to support him, and he also gets into other matters as well. He, of course, talks about that budget and also this last-minute attempt by Russia to try and nip in and get the Euro 2028 championship.
All I can say, Nick, is I think it's beyond satire that any football organisation, no matter how bonkers, would want to give Russia the right to host a tournament.
We also asked the Prime Minister to address it's the biggest tax take since World War II. Yet there's nothing to help energy bills soaring by £1,300, nothing to support struggling pensioners, and nothing to address the worst fall in living standards since the 1950s. How does he respond to that? And in other news, the shocking news. You remember the case of Child Q, the 15-year-old girl who was very invasively strip searched as it was wrongly thought that she was carrying some form of drugs about her. Unbelievably, the police officers have not been dismissed. They are still, though they're not front of house or front office duty, but surely they should have lost their jobs. That's coming up later in the show, as is the Channel migrants story. Around 4,000 crossed the Channel this year. That's 3 times the number that arrived by this time last year. The crisis deepens. What is the solution?
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Nick Ferrari at breakfast on
ago, as he boarded his aircraft to go to Brussels for a meeting with NATO and G7 summit about situations in Ukraine, I spoke with Prime Minister Boris Johnson about various matters concerning the battle against President Putin. And the Prime Minister is taking quite a package of measures with him. 6,000 new defensive missiles, £25 million for Ukraine's armed forces, plus 10,000 missiles and a total now £400 million the country has committed in humanitarian and economic aid for the crisis. But I started by asking how confident he was when he sits down with all those other world leaders as he wants to ramp up the pressure. How confident is he that everyone is going to be in accord?
I think everybody wants to go into this trying to get peace. We all want to see some solution in Ukraine. Everybody is hoping that Putin will pull back and stop this incredible barbaric slaughter that he's engaged on. But the only way to do that, we think, there's a huge amount of unity, is to keep going with the pressure that we've applied and to increase it. And the point I'm going to make today is, look, you know, he's already crossed a threshold of barbarism in the way he's behaving. People talk about new red lines for chemical, biological, tactical nuclear weapons or whatever. For me, the red line already has been crossed. He's bombing indiscriminately civilian centres. He's causing huge numbers of casualties in wholly innocent populations. We need to do more, and so we need to do more economically. Can we do more to stop him using his gold reserves, for instance, in addition to his cash reserves? What can we do more to sanction SWIFT? And then we need to do more to give the Ukrainians military support. The big thing that has emerged in the last month, the huge fact that the world now knows, is that the Ukrainian people will fight for their country. They believe in their country, they love their country, and they're going to defend it. That was something we didn't really know a month ago. It's now absolutely clear. That's changed geopolitics. It means that we have a duty to help them. We have a duty to help them protect themselves and their loved ones. And so the UK is stepping up again. We've already sent about 4,000 anti-tank weapons. We're going to send a lot more in the course of the few days, 6,000 more missiles and much else besides.
Let me ask you, President Zelensky, Prime Minister, what sort of leader is he? What sort of man? What have you learned about him? And are you keen to go to Kyiv personally?
I think that President Zelensky has proved to be a quite remarkable leader of his people. He's rallied them, and he's been their voice. He's you know, as Churchill said of himself, he may not have been the lion, but he's been privileged to give the roar. It's the Ukrainian people who have been the lion, and he's expressed their will and their sense of defiance. And I think he's been absolutely brilliant in the way that he has mobilized global opinion with his appearances before parliaments and Congress around the world. He's escalated the tragedy of Ukrainian people's imaginations, and quite rightly, he's an absolutely remarkable figure.
Would you be keen to meet with him personally?
I think that we'll be seeing him in just a few minutes, or just an hour or two in the NATO plenary. And as you know, I talk to him very, very regularly, and he does. You know, this is a man who's had to cope with the most appalling personal difficulties. He faces the constant threat of to his own life, but he keeps going, and he keeps going with incredible humour and grace.
You rightly referenced Putin's barbarism. They shoot protesters in the street, they bomb maternity hospitals, they're using rape as a form of subjugation. President Zelensky says this is akin to the Nazis. Prime Minister Johnson, is he right?
I think that it is certainly true, as Joe Biden has said, that the Russian war machine is already guilty of war crimes, and it is right that Russia should now be called before the International Court of Justice, and right that President Putin should appear before the International Criminal Court. There is no question that what they are doing is war crimes, and we must make sure we steadily collate all the evidence about the use of thermobaric weapons, the deliberate targeting of civilians, everything that we need eventually to bring prosecutions.
Were the Russians to deploy nuclear, limited nuclear or chemical weaponry? What should NATO and the West's response be?
I think it's very important that we don't allow ourselves to be diverted by talk of use of nuclear weapons. What's going on is a brutal, barbaric, conventional war in Ukraine, and in which the Ukrainian people are struggling heroically to defend themselves. Everybody wants a peaceful solution to this. Everybody wants Putin simply to pull back, to withdraw his troops, and to begin to repair the damage that he has done. But in the meantime, the only way forward is to tighten the economic vice around Putin and to continue to support the Ukrainians militarily, politically, diplomatically, in any way that we can.
Some are critical of the UK government's reaction, too little too late, regarding sanctions. The Chelsea Football Club is for sale, and another oligarch has £150 million of property in a trust. Did you move too slowly, Prime Minister?
No, I think the UK will, if you talk to people around Europe and the world, they fully accept that the UK was the first mover when it came to sanctioning SWIFT, which stops Putin getting payments for his hydrocarbons, sanctioning the Russian central bank, that's been absolutely crucial in paralysing the Russians.
In 2 miles, at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
Tough property laws in the UK, which meant that it took us a while to sanction all the oligarchs. But we've now done, I think, 1,000 individuals and entities. We are distraining their yachts. We're taking control of their homes. There is a huge economic punishment now being visited on the associates of Vladimir Putin. But Nick, we've got to go further. My message today in NATO will be that there are ways in which the world can continue to intensify the pressure on Putin. And the more we do that now, the more pressure we apply now, particularly on things like gold, that I believe the more we can shorten the war, shorten the slaughter in Ukraine.
Prime Minister speaking with me, about 20 minutes or so ago. There's more to come. We'll get his view on the criticism levelled at the budget yesterday. Nothing to help pensioners, nothing to help the most vulnerable. This, as a government, has never taken more in tax since World War II. And you won't want to miss his response to the audacious bid by Russia to try and nip in and host Euros 2028. But let's just look through what we've heard already from the Prime Minister. Camilla Tominey is, of course, one of my LBC colleagues. Sunday afternoons from 4. Associate editor of The Telegraph. Has a big piece about the budget, by the way, in today's edition. But let's get her on this interview. I mean, many things pop up there, really, Camilla, but the red line has been crossed, says the Prime Minister. What do you take from that? Good morning.
Morning. I think it's interesting as well that he is trying to lead from the front on this, isn't he, on the way to Brussels, and this sense of him striking up, I think, a very personal relationship with President Zelensky is significant. I was briefed by Downing Street a couple of weeks ago about how emotional their conversations on the phone usually were, and how they ended with the Prime Minister saying, you know, I hope this isn't the last time we speak, you take care, because of course Zelensky's life is constantly under threat. That at the same time, he's trying to provide this leadership, but also make sure that this whole situation doesn't escalate. I thought it was interesting that, I suppose like anybody, the Prime Minister appears to be in the dark about how these peace talks are actually progressing. Some interesting reports this morning about how Zelensky has suggested that the US should sanction Roman Abramovich because he might play a role in trying to smooth things over between Ukraine and the Kremlin. So again, it seems to be a very, very delicate situation.
And what is the idea of now going for Putin's gold, Camilla?
Well, they go for his yacht, they go for his mistress, they go for everything. Why not go for his gold? What the British want to say in the face of perhaps a rather more sluggish response by the EU is that they're doing everything that they can to sanction Russian assets. Others will say, well, there's more assets to sanction in London because London is Londongrad and lots of Russians have been able to keep their money and possessions there. But I think going after Putin now individually, having gone after some of his associates, is the way forward. And yes, it's the right mood music, isn't it, to suggest that anything that Putin owns on Western soil should be seized, frozen and perhaps even taken and repatriated with some of the Ukrainian people that are now flooding into Europe.
Lastly, the determination, the resistance of the Ukrainian people, said the Prime Minister, has changed the geopolitical scene. Camilla.
Well, also I thought it was interesting how he channeled Churchill and made references and comparisons between Zelensky and Churchill. Obviously, we know that he's a history buff and has written a book about the former Prime Minister. There's clearly widespread support for the fact that the Ukrainians, despite under mass shelling, won't give up cities like Mariupol. The British and the West and the EU know the significance of that particular port in creating a territorial corridor for Putin, and Zelensky's trying to resist that at all costs. So I think, yes, it's quite right that we see this combined Western front, if you can call it that, against what Putin's doing, and that includes trying to not make sure that there's some territorial carve-up that doesn't just affect Ukraine adversely, but actually the rest of the world.
Camilla Tomley, thank you. You're Associate Editor of The Telegraph, and you're on our LBC team sheet Sunday afternoons from 4. Coming up, more of that exclusive interview with the Prime Minister addressing the cost of living crisis.
I think that the cost of living is the single biggest thing we're having to fix, and we will fix it. One of the best ways of fixing the cost of living pressures today is to make sure that people are in high-wage, high-skilled jobs.
And in other stories, royal regret. Prince William speaking on his trip to Jamaica on that royal tour, apologising for the impact of slavery.
The appalling atrocity of slavery forever stains our history. I want to express my profound sorrow. Slavery was abhorrent, and it should never have happened.
More on that.
In 300 yards, at junction 3, take the A312 exit to Harrow, Hayes.
The Prime Minister says Vladimir Putin has already crossed red lines in his invasion of Ukraine. Chancellor Rishi Sunak has defended his spring statement.
Exit at junction 3.
Didn't do enough to help the poorest people. And on his visit to Jamaica, the Duke of Cambridge has expressed his profound sorrow at slavery. LBC Weather and other...
In a quarter of a mile, at Cranford Parkway interchange, take the 4th exit onto the Parkway, A312.
Southeastern services can't run between Gravesend and Ebbsfleet International, and that's following a signal failure. On the underground, there are minor delays on the Waterloo and City line because of a shortage of trains. On the Jubilee line, Bermondsey Station remains closed because of a shortage of staff. On the roads, there are restrictions on the M20 both ways between junctions 8 at Leeds Castle and 9 at Ashford, and that's because of Operation Brock. Very busy on the M25 clockwise between junctions 5 at the M26 and 6 at Godstone. Delays on the South Circular Road in both directions, but are particularly westbound heading towards Clapham Park, and that's because of the temporary lights.
This is LBC.
I'm lucky that I've got a biological mum and a stepmom, but this is mum. There's no steps in this family.
I mean, my big sister has always been like a second mom to me from the day I was born.
She's my auntie, although she's not really my auntie, she's actually my mum.
Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway.
Celebrating this Mother's Day, Tesco have meaningful gifts for every mum in your life, like beautiful Mother's Day tulips for just £6. Tesco, every little helps.
Continue on the Parkway for 1 mile.
March ends 27th of March.
Call Nick Ferrari now, 0345 6060 973 LBC.
We're all more or less in the business of adjusting. More record keeping, less device beeping. More troubleshooting, less idle commuting. More network connecting, service perfecting, partner selecting, team directing, payment collecting, and less of the messy rest. Amounts matter, like how much, how long, and when. Getting business right means getting just the right amount of everything, including insurance. Superscript, monthly business insurance shaped around you.
Free Now is the mobility super app. That means more ways to get around London. So when you're in a rush and you're cutting it fine for the flight, all you do is tap and go and enjoy your ride. Get a low price ride quickly with black cabs and private hire cars. Or dodge the traffic with e-scooters and e-bikes. Free Now, get there your way. Get the app for 50% off your first 2 rides with £8 using the code RIDE50. Offer available on first 2 Free Now rides until the 30th of April. Geographic exclusions apply. 18+ driving licence required.
We're so happy that you're so happy. We're all so happy. Happy. We're so happy that you're so happy. We're all so happy. Happy Trade.
Happy Traders, as a once trusted trader with literally thousands of glowing reviews on Check a Trade, we'll sort any drainage problem. Our engineers are local and here for you 24/7. Click happytraders.co.uk.
A squeezing across the chest. A feeling of unease. That sense something's not right.
It can be easy to dismiss the early signs of a heart attack, but it's never too early to call 999 and describe your symptoms. Your NHS
1/4 of a mile at Wagoners Roundabout. Take the second exit and stay on the Parkway, A312.
Breakfast on LBC.
With Motorway, sell your car quickly, easily and conveniently from home for free.
7:21 quickly through the front pages, noting of course that they were printed last night. I think part of that interview with Boris Johnson exclusively here on LBC, and what plays out in Brussels will be the front pages tomorrow. But quickly, let's go through them in no particular order. The Daily Mail now slash taxes even further. The Metro, no heat to eat. The Daily Mirror, thanks for nothing. The Guardian, cost of living surges, Sunak squeezes the poorest. The Times, biggest fall in living standards since 1950s. I do address much of this, by the way, with the Prime Minister. Similar to the Eye, biggest hit to living standards since the age of rationing. The Telegraph, the biggest fall in living standards on record. And lastly, the Financial Times, which is often the go-to paper after a budget or a statement. Sunak banks windfall for pre-election tax cut as cost of living crisis hits home. The Sun newspaper, quite rightly for its readership.
Exit the roundabout onto the Parkway. Continue on A312 for 1.5 miles.
Last minute, they call it outrageous. Wait till you hear what the Prime Minister calls it. A bid to try and derail the UK and Ireland's efforts to host the Euros 2028. Not that far away, is it? Russia saying that they want to host it. That's the front page of the Sun. You'll get a reaction on that. Now, in my interview with Prime Minister Boris Johnson, conducted about 30 minutes or so ago, we also looked at the cost of living crisis, Rishi Sunak's spring statement, and I put it to the PM that the Chancellor should have gone further to help pensioners and others yesterday.
I think the Chancellor has done a huge amount to try to address the increases in the cost of living. Everybody can see that that is the number one challenge. So that's why he's put so much into helping people reduce the cost of their energy bills. And what he's also done is help to cut taxes for working people by, I think, the biggest single amount since for the last 25 years. If you look at what we've done with the next threshold, the thing that I promised in 2019, we've been able to do that. We've lifted that threshold at £12,000. That will help people a great deal. But yes, we need to, Nick, as we go forward, we need to do more. And I'll be bringing forward a British energy security strategy, which is intended to make good some of the mistakes of the last 25 years, in which we haven't really done enough to ensure that we have our own energy supplies. We need to go big on nuclear in this country. We need to go much bigger on offshore wind. We can make sure that by investing in energy production, domestic energy production, independent energy production, we can have sustainable long-term supplies, and that will bring down the costs for consumers over the long term.
You have one tax cut on the way. Could there be another this side of a general election?
I'm not going to anticipate anything the Chancellor does. I think what nobody could have predicted that the global economy would be hit by COVID in the way that it was, and I think it's outstanding that having sustained the biggest fall in output that we've ever seen over exactly 2 years ago, when we had to go into lockdown, the UK economy is now coming back so strongly with fastest growth and also lowest unemployment. So don't forget that I think that the cost of living is the single biggest thing we're having to fix, and we will fix it. But one of the best ways of fixing the cost of living pressures today is to make sure that people are in high-wage, high-skilled jobs.